All right. Let's get into our topics.
Cool.
And I've missed these the last couple weeks, but Brock Purdy's stat update. Every week you go through and you update his stats and how he's doing in trend versus the rest of the league. Is he trending up or is he trending down in a specific statistic for himself based off the prior week? What does that look like this week?
Yeah, let's go over that. And then I got a couple things I want to ask you in regards to that kind of are related to this. So, first thing, Brock Purdy's numbers after week 12, he remains in the exact same place with completions and attempts. He's 22nd in completions, 25th in attempts.
Okay.
Completion percentage stays in first place. All three of those things stayed the same in relation to other quarterbacks. He dropped a little bit in yards down to 2,871. He stayed the same with his average, yards per completion. Yards per game dropped a little bit, obviously. So did the yards total. His long stayed the same, 76, fourth place. Passing touchdowns, he's tied for seventh, stayed in that same place. His interception was down just a little bit. I think it was eighth, and now it's 10th with his sixth interception, his first pick six. Sacked ninth, went down just a little bit there with 21 sacks. He's tied for seventh in sacks for losses, which went up a little bit, so improved a little bit there. That's actually the only number that went up this week. They either stayed the same or went down. And then QBR and passer rating, he is still on top of the NFL, stayed first. He's trending 4,437 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. That's what he's trending. If he continues at this pace, that's what his numbers will be this season.
Good season, especially for year two, man. Can't sneeze at that. That's a good season.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And a couple things that made me also that I dove into a little deeper. Last year people were so mad because I called him dink and dunk. Well, last year, Brock Purdy was only throwing past 10 yards 30% of the time. I looked at his numbers this year. He's doing it 38% of the time. So this is a different Brock Purdy than we're used to. And it's really surprising seeing him come off of a UCL injury and now he's throwing the ball downfield more often. That's not something I really expected. And I wanted to get your take on that, but also your take on this. Think about how bold that move was for Kyle Shanahan. It seemed like a mistake to me to go all in on Brock Purdy coming off a UCL injury, to trade Trey Lance away, to call him the real deal. I'm like, is this dude nuts? But so far, man, it's paying off, and Kyle made the right decision. So I want to give props to Kyle. Doesn't mean that that's going to be the right decision in the long term, right? There's still things to be seen. Like, how is Brock Purdy going to end up becoming, right? He's doing great so far. It's possible that changes. I'm hopeful it doesn't. And also, like, what happens to Trey down the line. But I wanted to get your take on all of this information I just laid out.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the. I'll go backwards. The dink and dunk thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I get this comment all the time when Brock Purdy has a good game. I mean, I must see it 10 times in a post game show. Mm-hmm. Oh, he's not dink and dunk now, is he? I never said he was dink and dunk. Right. Mm-hmm. That was a Ryan thing. And Ryan has stood by that. He's talked through that. And I think his definition of dink and dunk, I understood it. But those were not words that came out of my mouth. So stop conflating content creators. Okay. Also, I will say this. Throwing downfield is not a product of arm strength. Somebody posted a clip of CJ Stroud throwing 70 yards this past week, which, what the hell? Like, that's insane in itself. But a comment below that, somebody said, yeah, I always knew he had a stronger arm than Anthony Richardson. Like, hold on a second. Okay. Very impressive throw. I had CJ Stroud as the number one quarterback coming out this draft. I thought it was extremely clear, right?
Yeah, me too.
I never had an issue with his arm strength. I didn't think it would ever be an issue. I didn't think it was elite, but I thought it was plus, is the way that I ranked it. Plus arm strength, but not elite. But to say he has a more powerful arm or a stronger arm, to me, all quarterbacks can throw downfield. Now, not 70 yards. That's absolutely stupid. But 40 yards, 35 yards, 45 yards, all quarterbacks in the NFL can make that throw. You can go to most local high school games and watch that throw being attempted every week. They can make that throw. Arm strength comes in when you've got to throw cross field 25, 30 yards into a tight window and you got to put it on a laser. That is arm strength. Okay. My question with Brock Purdy was never, can he throw a deep ball that's more a product of the offense and what is open for him and what's not. I knew that that could be something that he could gain. The arm issue or arm strength hasn't really been an issue. I mean, he's shown he can make all the throws, but throwing downfield doesn't constitute arm strength. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. That's not, those are
Not
two
40
different things.
yards, not 40
Yeah.
yards at least,
They-
right? 70 yards. Now that's different.
70
Yeah.
yards, that's something different, right?
Yeah.
But even then, I wouldn't say, okay, CJ Stroud has an elite arm because he can throw 70. Yeah, he has a elite distance, but he's not throwing cross field the way that Mahomes or Allen off platform, falling backwards. Like, that's just not who he is. He's still on pace to be a very good quarterback. And I thought that would be the case, but that doesn't mean he also has to have the strongest arm. Those things don't compute for me. So anyways, the next question that you asked about was the Trey Lance. Moving on from Trey Lance, how ballsy was that? It was the right move. It was the right move. Ryan, you and I had a show this offseason, and we talked about advice for Brock Purdy. And throughout that show, we started to insert our advice for the 49ers as well. And one thing that I called out then, this was in March, I think, March or May. I said, if the 49ers believe that Brock Purdy is their quarterback, they have to move on from Trey Lance. That is the right move. It is a gutsy move. It doesn't make it less gutsy coming off of an injury, but it's the right move. Because when you feel like you have a franchise quarterback, whether I agree with it or not, that is irrelevant. None of that matters. If you feel that in your heart as an organization, you have to remove all roadblocks. The way that the Patriots did for Mac Jones. Now, that hasn't panned out for them. Mac Jones clearly is not that guy, but they removed Cam Newton from the equation because they didn't want the distraction. It wasn't fair to who they thought could be their franchise quarterback. The same way the 49ers should have done that for Trey Lance and removing Jimmy Garoppolo. I called for them to do that for Brock Purdy and remove Trey Lance if they believe Brock Purdy's the guy. If they didn't believe he's the guy, then you have to keep Trey Lance around. The moment they made that trade, they told us exactly what their thoughts were. They do believe he's a franchise guy. Now, will he be? I don't know. I have my opinions on that. I've made those clear, but that's irrelevant. They believe he is. And if they believe he is, removing Trey Lance was the absolute right move. It was ballsy, but I applaud it. Yes.
Yeah, I don't disagree that when you feel like you have your franchise quarterback, you need to go all in and remove the distraction. So I don't disagree with that at all. I just think, man, how bold is it to do that for a guy that's coming off a UCL injury? Like, how do you know how his arm is going to be when all is said and done? Yeah, you got a little bit of it in, July and August in training camp. But really, like, just the longevity of that arm injury and assuming that he was going to be the same quarterback he was in the previous year, that's bold, man. Kyle saw something in Brock Purdy. He called him the real deal, and he went all in on him. So I got to give him credit for that. Whether or not Trey ends up being a good quarterback or not is irrelevant. Or even, we'll see what happens with Brock. But I just think it was very bold of Kyle Shanahan to be that aggressive and make that decision.
It was bold, but it was the right move then, and it's the right move now. It absolutely is the right move. It just was. I mean, you can't develop two young guys together. If
Think
if
about
you
if Trey
believe that
Lance was
Brock
on the
Purdy,
team
yeah,
during the
you
three
just
game losing streak, it would have been bad. Yeah.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can't, you just can't develop two young guys together. That doesn't make sense in the NFL. You've got to choose one, and they chose Brock Purdy, and right now that move is paying off big time for them.